After most of Lombardy was conquered by the French-Piedmont armies, the Austrians fell back near the quadrilater fortresses, where they prepared a defensive position. After a halt of the French forces, the Austrians thought that it is the right time for a counter-offensive along Chiese River in order to regain their lost positions in the previous months. However, the two armies would accidentally meet at the Battle of Solferino, one of the biggest Europe had seen since the Napoleonic Wars, which would decide the fate of the war and the fate of Italy. In the morning of the 23rd of June, after the arrival of Emperor Franz Joseph, the Austrian army changed direction to counterattack along the River Chiese. At the same time, Napoleon III ordered his troops to advance, causing the battle to occur in an unpredicted location. While the Piedmontese fought the Austrian right wing near San Martino, the French battled to the south of them near Solferino against the main Austrian corps. The Austrian forces were personally led by Emperor Franz Joseph, consisting of the First Army, containing 4 corps 2nd, 3rd, 9th, and 11th under Franz von Wimpfen, and the Second Army, containing 4 corps 1st, 5th, 7th, and 8th under Franz von Schlick. The French army at Solferino, personally led by Napoleon III, was divided in 4 corps, plus the Imperial Guard. Many of its men and generals were veterans of the French conquest of Algeria and the Crimean War, but its commander-in-chief had very limited military experience of note. The Sardinian army had 4 divisions on the field. Although all 3 combatants were commanded by their monarchs, each was seconded by professional soldiers. Marshal Jean-Baptiste Philibert Vaillant served as chief of staff to Napoleon III, while Victor Emmanuel was accompanied by his Minister of War, Lieutenant General Alfonso Ferrero La Marmora. The Austrian High Command was hindered by the rivalry between the Chief of Staff, Heinrich von Hesse, and the Emperor's Adjutant General Karl Ludwig von Brunn. According to the Allied battle plan formulated on the 24th of June, the Franco-Sardinian army moved east to deploy along the right river banks of the Mincio. The French were to occupy the villages of Solferino, Cavriana, Guidizzolo and Medolwith, respectively. The 1st Corps Barraghe de Hilliers, 2nd Corps Macmayan, 3rd Corps Canrabat, and 4th Corps Neil. The 4 Sardinian divisions were to take Parzo Lengo. After marching a few kilometers, the Allies came into contact with the Austrian troops, who had entrenched themselves in those villages. In the absence of a fixed battle plan, the fighting which took place was uncoordinated, which is why so many casualties occurred, and it fell into 3 separate engagements, at Medol South, Solferino Center, and San Martino North. The battle started at Medol around 4 a.m. Marching towards Guidizzolo, the 4th Corps encountered an Austrian infantry regiment of the Austrian First Army. General Neil immediately decided to engage the enemy and deployed his forces east of Medol. This move prevented the 3 corps of the Austrian First Army from aiding their comrades of the Second Army near Solferino, where the main French attacks took place. The French forces were numerically inferior to the Austrians. The 4th Corps contained 3 infantry divisions under Deluzzi, Vinoy and Failey, and a cavalry brigade. Neil, holding a thin line of 5 kilometers in length, was able to stop the Austrian assault on his position by ably warding off attacks and counter-attacking at opportune moments. Around 4:30 a.m., the advance guard of the 1st Corps, 3 infantry divisions under Faury, de l'Admirault and Balzaine, and a cavalry division under Desvaux came into contact with the Austrian, the 5th Corps under Stadion near Castiglione del Stiviere. Around 5 a.m. 2nd Corps under MacMahon, 2 infantry divisions, and a cavalry brigade under Larmdruge, Decon, and Godan encountered Hungarian units posted near Camarino. The Austrian forces were 3 corps strong and positioned on the towns of Solferino, Cavriana and Volta Mantovana. The Austrians were able to hold these positions all day against repeated French attacks. On the northern side of the battlefield, the Sardinians, 4 divisions strong, encountered the Austrians around 7 a.m. A long battle erupted over control of Pozzolengo, San Martino and Madonna della Scoperta. The Austrian, the 8th Corps under Benedict, had 39,000 men and 80 guns, and was repeatedly attacked by a Sardinian force of 22,000 men with 48 guns. Looking south, according to Schneid, by early afternoon, the Austrian attack had failed, and Neil pushed beyond Robeco and Corsa Nova halfway to Guidizzolo. At 3 p.m. General Renault's division of Canrobert's 3rd Corps arrived at Robeco. Neil, now reinforced, launched a coordinated attack on Guidizzolo. However, the arrival of the Austrian 3rd and 11th Corps stopped the French assault, and after 2 hours, Neil withdrew. In the centre, Stadium received reinforcements from Clamgalla's 1st Corps, but Napoleon III fed the Imperial Guard divisions into the combat, and by 2 p.m. the cemetery and town were surrounded. Near 3 p.m. the French reserves, formed by Canrobert's 3rd Corps and the Imperial Guard under Rignot, attacked Cavriana, which was defended by the Austrian 1st Corps under Clamgallas, finally occupying it at 6 p.m. and thereby breaking through the Austrian centre. This breakthrough forced a general retreat of both Austrian armies. To the north, the Austrians were able to ward off 3 Sardinian attacks, inflicting heavy losses upon the attackers. At the end of the day, Benedict was ordered to retreat with the rest of the Austrian army, but ignored the order and kept resisting. At 8 p.m. a 4th Sardinian assault finally captured the contested hills, and Benedict withdrew. The main Sardinian contribution in the overall battle consisted in keeping Benedict's corps deeply engaged throughout the day and preventing the sending of 2 brigades as reinforcement to the force attacked by the French in Solferino. The battle was a particularly grueling one, lasting over 9 hours and resulting in over 2,386 Austrian troops killed, with 10,807 wounded and 8,638 missing or captured. The Allied armies also suffered a total of 2,492 killed, 12,512 wounded, and 2,920 captured or missing. Reports of wounded and dying soldiers being shot or bayoneted on both sides added to the horror. In the end, the Austrian forces were forced to yield their positions, and the Allied French-Piedmontese armies won a tactical, but costly, victory. The Austrians retreated to the 4 fortresses of the quadrilateral, and the campaign essentially ended. The battle led the Swiss Jean-Henri Dunant to write his book A Memory of Solferino. Although he did not witness the battle, his statement is contained in an unpublished page included in the 1939 English edition, published by the American Red Cross. He toured the field following the battle and was greatly moved by what he saw. Horrified by the suffering of wounded soldiers left on the battlefield, Dunant set about a process that led to the Geneva Conventions and the establishment of the International Red Cross. After the Battle of Solferino, a ceasefire was agreed on the 8th of July. The 2 emperors met on the 11th of July at Villafranca di Verona, and the armistice was signed on the following day, the Peace of Villafranca. Napoleon III signed the armistice with Austria at Villafranca for a combination of reasons. The Austrians had retreated to the quadrilateral, which would be very costly to overrun. His absence in France had made the country vulnerable to attack. His actions in Italy were being criticized in France. He did not want Cavour and Piedmont to gain too much power, mostly at the expense of his men. He also feared involvement of the German states. Most of Lombardy with its capital, Milan, excluding only the Austrian fortresses of Mantua and Legnago and the surrounding territory, was transferred from Austria to France, which would immediately cede the territories to Sardinia. The rulers of central Italy, who had been expelled by revolution shortly after the beginning of the war, were to be restored. The agreement, made by Napoleon behind the backs of his Sardinian allies, led to great outrage in Piedmont, Sardinia, and Cavour resigned in protest. However, the Villafranca terms never took effect, although they were reaffirmed by the final Treaty of Zurich in the 11th of November. The agreement had become a dead letter. The central Italian states were occupied by Piedmont, which would not restore the previous rulers, and France was unwilling to force them to do so. The Austrians were left to look on in frustration at the French failure to carry out the terms of the treaty. Austria had emerged triumphant after the suppression of liberal movements in 1849, but its status as a great power on the European scene was now seriously challenged, and its influence in Italy severely weakened. As such, on the 22nd of March 1860, with French and British approval, the United Provinces of Central Italy, including the Duchy of Parma, Duchy of Modena, Grand Duchy of Tuscany, and part of the Papal States were annexed by the Kingdom of Sardinia, and France took its deferred rewards of Savoy and Nice. This latter move was vehemently opposed by Italian national hero Garibaldi, a native of Nice, and directly led to Garibaldi's expedition to Sicily, which would complete the preliminary unification of Italy. The annexation of Nice to France caused the Nicid Exodus, or the emigration of a quarter of the Nicid Italians to Italy, and the Nicid Vespers. During the war, Prussia also mobilized 132,000 men, but never joined the fighting. The weaknesses laid bare during the mobilization of the Prussian army to initiate military reforms. These reforms were the basis for Prussia's rapid victories over Austria in 1866 and France in 1872-71, which led to a united Germany under Prussian dominance.